wake up. This is a brand new episode of Wake Up Right.
Wake up.
With your workout buddies, April and sometimes Yenna. Your hit podcast. Your much needed hit of encouragement, empowerment, and motivation to live and grow each day a little brighter.
Welcome to Wake Up Right, your hit podcast. Erin is joining me as a co-host and hopefully reoccurring co-host on this episode.
Woohoo.
So, hello. Yeah, Erin, if you missed it, we went into his background, his story in a previous podcast. So it will be linked in the description of the podcast, as well as the description of the video, all of the places.
Don't miss it.
Yeah, it's a great one. It was a good one. I want to thank everybody for over 1,700 downloads in the first month of the podcast. That's really good. I know it, like with YouTube, if you're coming from a YouTube audience, you might be like, oh, that's not a lot. In the podcast world, for a out of nowhere podcast, that's pretty huge. I think it puts us in the top like 30% of podcast.
That's pretty awesome.
So yeah, I'm floored. I'm so excited. So excited. Yenna will likely be back from traveling the world in September, and I'm pretty excited. Until then, Erin will be around. Even after then, probably Erin will.
I am your Yenna. I am Yenna for the time being. Sorry, Yenna. Sorry, I don't want to replace you.
One more kind of housekeeping task. The podcast YouTube channel will not have full episodes of the podcast until it meets the threshold of YouTube requirements. So if you are interested in seeing full episodes of the podcast on YouTube, go and follow, hit the notification bell, and then watch the clips and things that I post over the next few weeks. So we can get the watch time up and start posting full episodes there. So that is all for the housekeeping type things. And yeah, welcome, Erin, co-host Erin, FitLabb.
Great to be back, especially so soon. I did tell you I was up for this, and it's a pleasure to be back. The first one was so much fun, and I think we covered a lot of great topics, and there's still a million things more to talk about, and there always will be.
I agree. So it is late, and I started doing this podcast right after walking my miles. So kind of like half hot mess. I was telling my husband, it's like cooler here today, like by like a few degrees, not like cool, but it's probably still in the 90s, but like the humidity was like intensified. So like, I know more stepped out of my car and it's like perspirating. I walked the dogs this morning and I just walked each of them a mile. And I ran into one of the neighbors, this little old lady, and she's like, oh, honey, you are sweating a lot. And I'm like, thank you. I know. Like I had perspiration coming down my forehead.
I love fantastic. That. This is actually my pre-workout because I am going to go hit the gym in my house after this and get a good one in. So figured we'd have a little fun, but yeah, I totally agree. Like, it's been really hot up here. Also, we're up in New York, and it actually is a little bit better the last couple of days. It's only been like mid 80s or whatever, but the last few days before that, it was like seriously, like mid to high 90s and crazy high humidity. You walk out and you feel like you just jumped into a swimming pool the second you step outside. So it's been fun. When I've been sending my clients to do walks outside, normally they love it. Now they're like, yeah, I think I just went swimming and not for a walk. They come back and it's crazy. But I think the heat wave is kind of passing now. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Although I don't want summer to be over.
I'm ready for fall. I am not ready for fall in some ways, but in most ways, I'm ready for like that. I didn't really experience this so much in Missouri or in Utah or El Paso, but in the South, I feel like there's like a day sometime in September or October, like usually like mid to late September, early October, where you walk outside and it's like extremely noticeable difference in the air. It's like all of the humidity is zapped away, and then you just have like that crisp autumn air. It's like magic. And so I'm like, where's my moment? I'm going to be so upset if North Carolina doesn't have that magical moment. But
I actually love those crisp, nice mornings where the humidity is a little lower. And I really want to get back into cycling on the street. Yeah, because it's such a great form of exercise. I love it. Yeah. I love it. And you see things when you go for a walk, or when you go for a bike on the road, a bike ride, I should say, you see things that you don't normally notice when you're driving. Like you'll see houses, you'll see gardens of people's houses. You'll notice anything, millions of things that you don't actually notice. Like, oh, there's a stream there. I've driven by this a million times. I didn't see it. You just appreciate things so much more. And it's just enjoyable. You're in nature, you're outdoors, it's not like disgusting outside, hopefully, and you just are enjoying it. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to that. I have to get my bike service that reminded me of that. But yeah, I think it's coming. It's coming soon.
That's awesome. Well, it'll come for you before it comes. It'll come for you before it comes for us.
True.
Since you're a little further north.
True story.
Speaking of that, my husband, towards the end of October, has a race in Virginia. I'm pretty excited about. So we'll probably experience a hardcore fall the end of October there, more so than we will here. But because I am not positive that we're going to have a fall here. Everything might go straight to brown. We're pretty close to mountains and stuff, but still we're an hour and a half from the coast. And it's so hot that things are already starting to turn brown. And so I'm oh, this is where we're at. They're this part of the South. So I have to segue this, and I did not share this. I sent Aaron the topics of conversation, and this was not part of that. But I wanted to start here. I want to unpack something, and before I kind of unpack it, I want Aaron's just interpretation of what I say, because I think it'll be interesting. So in my last monthly update, so last Wednesday's video, I said that, what did I think I wrote it down. No, I didn't write down exactly what I said. So I'll just paraphrase what I said. So my goal is not to lose weight. My goal is to sustain the weight I lose. So while weight loss is a priority, a higher priority for me is maintaining the weight that I'm able to lose. What say you?
I think that's actually a really positive way to think of it, because I think with weight loss, actually, yeah, I think that's a great way to think of it, because if you think about what most people do with weight loss, they're very focused on the weight loss, the number on the scale. And people tend to fall for a lot of quick fix schemes and scams and whatever, and diets. And, you know what I think about diets, those types of diets, especially, right? Not just what you eat. And they do these things that are focused on just that, rather than focusing on the sustainability and the health part of it. So I watched that video, and I think I even commented about it, but I remember you saying that specifically. And when I've heard you say the first part, I was thinking, okay, the trolls are going to be after her for this. Mm-hmm. But then I heard the second part, and I said, that's great, because that is the best way to think about it, because that's your ultimate goal, right? That's what everyone's ultimate goal should be: sustainable weight loss that you can maintain ongoing. And how do you do that? I knew what you were saying. What you were saying is you want to go about it at a nice, slow and steady pace, doing it in a way that works for you, that's healthy, that's sustainable, that you can stick with, that you don't feel restrictive, that you don't feel is something that you can't keep doing. Am I kind of nailing hitting the nail on the head here?
So it is. There's definitely
that was how my interpretation was.
So some people may remember, and I've thought about doing just a dedicated video on this again, but I did a video, how did I get fat? And then I shared essentially my life history with body image and then diet and that sort of thing. If I would have learned the proper way to fuel my body and to approach fitness at multiple points in life, I would not be where I am. I was telling my husband, if I would have learned the proper way to diet, which is a lifestyle change, which is such it's not a full saying to people who haven't done any work towards losing weight or have only done crash diets, that they need a lifestyle change. It doesn't really register right away necessarily. Like, I feel like it's not unpacking it enough, but that constant like crash diet, then overeating the wrong foods and under exercise, like that pattern is something that so many people struggle with. It's so common. And I think sometimes it's criticized that I am, for lack of a better word, gentle with my progress, my process more so than progress. And I'm really not that gentle. I work out.
I've seen your workouts. That's not gentle workouts. Like you're putting the work in. Okay. So anyone who criticizes you about that, have they watched you really? Have they watched your channel? Okay. So no, I don't think they really have, unless they're just judging based on whatever they want to see.
And this is going to kind of skip. I'm not really finishing my whole thought here with it, but I think it's a natural flow from what you just said. When I started my weight loss journey, I could not walk 20 feet. I couldn't walk up my driveway without having some back pain. Walking was not going to be my immediate answer. And so you may be like, well, just focus on diet and don't work out at all. But working out is a happy place for me. Working out regulates so many things. And so I did what I could. And for a solid year, I worked out 4, 5, 6 days a week. And then I started including walking in there. So I've never stopped working out entirely. I scaled back those workouts and started moving more.
I'll tell you, if I miss some workouts, my wife will tell you, I get to be pretty grouchy. I'm not as fun to be around. And I'm a really happy person overall. Like, I'm really like easy, happy and whatever. But if I start missing workouts, or if I go to the gym and there's those workout killer people there, like there's always like that guy or whatever who like you show up and like they beeline to you and like, hey man, what's going on? And they like don't leave you alone and they hang on you and you can't escape. That always happens to me. I don't know what it is. Do I have like a sign that says, hey, I'm here to talk? No, I'm really not. But yeah, come and talk to me. And I can't. And I come home from those workouts because I barely get anything done. I'm like, he was there again. I couldn't get away. So, but no, like if you don't get your workout, it's a happy experience. It puts you in a good mood. I wish everyone knew what that felt like and could appreciate the power of exercise in that regard. So, real quick, I wanted to say one more thing about what you were talking about before, not to backtrack too much, because I think we're onto a good topic here. But what you were saying before about your initial like progress, or how you actually, felt like you got overweight and you wouldn't have, if you knew what you knew now, you might not have ever gotten as far as, you went. Where I was going with this was, it's a shame that as a former educator myself, I think, the education system is really dropping the ball, in my honest opinion, because nutrition education should really be a big part of how we educate children growing up across different ages. It's really not a big part of the curriculum at all. Even if it's in there, it's not really focused on it all. I remember when I was a student, I even remember when I was a teacher for, a brief time, a few years, it was in the curriculum, but it was like barely even discussed in any meaningful way. There was no real talk about it. And I think that's perpetuated because people don't grow up knowing what healthy eating really is. And it's a shame because that education is not there.
Simply Mander said it so well in the podcast that she and I recorded. She said that I wish we taught basic nutrition, like we teach fad diets to people.
Yes, so true.
And I'm like, yeah, that's amazing.
Well, by the way, we don't really teach that though. It's Instagram and YouTube that teaches the fad diets, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's social media.
Too bad it's not. Yeah. Well,
you know
but I mean, even before, because, back in college, so in college, the internet was kind of coming about. It wasn't like what it is now, but it was definitely there. We had all the social networks and things, like Facebook had taken off and stuff by that time, but Facebook then was not what Facebook is now. So, but I still, I was like, oh, Atkins, I bought an Atkins diet book. I went to Walmart. I'm like, oh, this is going to solve my problems.
Yep.
It was the answer, because there wasn't a learn healthy ways to shed body fat. That book didn't exist.
Well, you know what it is? They play to human nature. And what that is, human nature, really, everyone wants instant gratification. People are always looking for that instant gratification with minimal effort, right? It's just part of the way most people are wired. Not everybody, but the vast majority of people, that's their way, the way they think and what they want. It makes sense. So these fad diets play right into that. And they're like, hey, do this in success overnight.
Yeah. And that's one way to look at it. Also, I think from my perspective, I literally, especially if I go back to a younger version me, I did not understand, and as you were saying earlier, nutrition. And schools really couldn't, could they really teach good nutrition? And then the majority, serve the lunches that are served in the majority of cafeterias.
Totally agree.
So, so literally if you don't have the ideal example at home, then you're not going to get it. And how are you going to get the ideal example if you don't come from a family whose family, it can be a generational thing where it can be a cultural thing,
a generational thing. Mm-hmm. Totally. Many different things. It could be access to the healthy foods or no access to, healthy foods. Like if the only store that you have in your town sells only a finite amount of stuff that you have access to, you don't have a major supermarket in your area. And that's all you're able to, shop at. And that's what you have access to. It's just, also a geographical thing as well in some cases.
So I'm going back to what you said. You kind of, this is paraphrasing, you kind of said, people want fast results. The flip side to that is people think that if you don't have fast results, it's not working.
Yeah.
Fast results are the key that it's working.
It's not.
And it's not really, but in the minds of most people, if they start something and there's not immediate feedback, then they think that it's broken, they're broken, it's not going to work for them.
Yep.
And then they move on. That's why people go from fad diet to fad diet, because it's they start this diet X, and diet X helps them lose 10 pounds.
And then it slows doan. And then, exactly. Then they rebound.
And so
up,
then they're
stop.
Well, that didn't work. And then they eat some pizza, and then they go move on to diet Z, and then they're on diet Z. And then and they kind of just do this. So whether you have
diet
10
Z.
pounds, well, let me tell you all about it.
I couldn't resist. Sorry.
So, yeah. But
I know. I agree though. I totally agree. It's this constant cycle.
Most people on YouTube have not heard me talk about him a ton. I did make one exclusive video about Nick Saban.
I've never heard of him, actually. I don't know who that is.
Nick Saban is the head football coach for the University of Alabama.
Cool.
He's amazing. He's amazing. Now that we've got that out of the way, I've got a few quotes from him. Success doesn't come from pie in the sky thinking. It's a result of consciously doing something each day that will add to your overall excellence.
I love it. So true.
Success will only continue as long as the commitment to the process of being successful remains in place. I think those are two pretty great quotes. The first one, I think, when you think about success doesn't come from pie in the sky thinking to me is me at 350 pounds, setting a goal weight of 110 pounds, and then starting keto.
Yes.
No hate to people who do keto.
Nope.
Like there are people who need to and who have success and who reach their goals. That is not sustainable for me. So to me, doing anything other than slow, sustainable, working through the process, identifying what foods work for me, what type of exercise works for me, and then doing the things that I can do right now today is important. And then building on those things. That's a process that I've never done. I've always tried to do everything at once and I've always failed. So spending this year going through it, like I feel like I knew all the things I needed to do in the beginning, but it's like I have to relearn it. And then I just keep doing it a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And I keep losing a little more weight and a little bit more weight. And now I can move so much more. So yes, people might scoff at like, you've been trying to lose weight and you were this big. One, you don't know my body. And when you crash diet and take like diet pills at certain points, and you have injuries where you lose a good percentage of the muscle in one of your legs, your metabolism shifts, everything shifts. Like you don't know like what other people are going through. So we shouldn't judge other people by our standards and expect them to be somewhere. The danger in doing that, even to ourselves, is that we stop, we get in our way and we don't have the progress that we want.
Totally.
So I love that success doesn't come from pie in the sky thinking. It's a result of consciously doing something each day that will add to your overall excellence.
You know, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I love that quote because it really is about making a series of small changes that completely continue to, compound on each other and build on over time. It's like what we discussed in the last podcast, right? It builds onto what we discussed there because it's all about starting where you're at, whatever your ability level is. And if it's like you said in that podcast, if it's just going outside and going for like a short walk at first, if that's all you're able to do, start there, start adding that every day. And you know what? After a week, you're going to be able to do a longer walk. You're going to be able to do a little more and keep building on it. Add a little something new, a different exercise every few days. And it could just be one set at first. It doesn't have to be this big, scary thing. But I also, the pie in the sky part, I look at that as being, having to do with goal setting as well. And goal setting, most people don't know how to set proper goals for themselves, right? Most people will set a goal that's this giant overarching, like ultimate goal for down the road where they want to be. Like what the example you gave, if you're started out 350 pounds, 110 pound end goal, not only is that maybe not a reasonable goal, but it's also way too big of a goal that you're focusing on, not you per se, but like anyone. Right. And then that can seem like such a massive, difficult thing to achieve. And it defeats people. It'll defeat most people before they even start because it seems too like far-fetched, too hard to ever reach that. And they focus on that rather than setting midterm goals, shorter term goals, breaking it down into reasonable and achievable goals in the shorter term, and also things that are measurable as well. Right. So I firmly believe that goals should always be a measurable thing that then you set things up that support it. You come up with a system that, okay, well, if I have a goal of losing, 5 pounds in the next 1 or 2 months, whatever it may be, how am I going to get there? What are the supporting plans going to be that are going to get me there? Right. And you then come up with an itemized list of reasonable and achievable things that you're going to build into your every day or every week or whatever it is to get to that, to reach that goal. Right. And maybe that comes with a little education or asking a few people some, good questions on how to, whatever, how, what, why, what, all that stuff. But that's what should be done. And then that becomes losing 5 pounds in a month or 2 months is a lot more doable from a mental standpoint and a physical standpoint than to think about it as, oh my God, I have to lose like 300, 200, whatever pounds as like, that's your goal. It's all about the sustainability, right? It all plays right back into that. And that is how you build a sustainable plan. It's one of the big ways that you do that. And then by having supporting things that play into it. So I love that quote and what it stands for, because that's how I interpret it.
Yeah. Well, and I like it. I like it too. I like all of Nick Saban's. I like all of his philosophies. He's always talking about football, but I like applying them to life.
Football definitely is relatable to life in many ways.
Yeah. Something else I've thought about a lot is that because I started the way that I did, I started with workouts because that's what I could do. And I have a little bit of a fitness background. So I knew workout movements, workouts that I could do, but mostly stuff that I could do and be relatively stationary. And as my fitness level increased, I didn't necessarily increase my total daily activity, which is where I'm at the past few months. And what I've been really trying to do is increasing, not just working out. So working out is still a part of my life. But in addition to working out, I'm really focused on increasing like my total daily expenditure of like what I'm doing just throughout the day. And that could look like chores, doing extra chores around the house, taking walks, but just moving more. It's so easy to be sedentary. If you were prioritizing, let's say you're working with a client and you were prioritizing like workouts or just overall daily movement, which would you do? Which would you prioritize, or would you prioritize, and how would you articulate that to a client?
It's a good question. And I think there's no exact answer, only because everybody's situation is different, right?
Yeah.
If you're talking about someone who's like, extremely overweight and it hasn't done any exercise yet, really, the number one goal is probably to increase their overall activity levels and to then start also baking in some good workouts in, but that are, appropriate for them on their level. But the number one priority in the very beginning, if they're very deconditioned and not accustomed to any exercise whatsoever, the number one priority is figuring out, well, how can we increase your daily activity level, get you up and moving and get you walking much more, and that's where I love your Apple Watch video, because it's so true. There you go. And my Fitbit, no Apple Watch yet. I had one, I had whatever. And I'm the only person that wears like two watches. It's ridiculous because I'm a watch guy and I can't let this go. But I love wearing these fitness trackers. I'm all for them because they do help motivate to get up. Like my Fitbit, if I don't get up and walk at 250 steps an hour, I get a notification. And I actually personally take that seriously. I'm like, oh, all right, well, I want to get I'm challenging myself. I want to get my activity numbers in for the day, and I set up like a goal. What is it? 9 hours of activity, whatever, within these X amount of hours. That's the way Fitbit does it. Every one of these like systems is different for Apple Watch and whatever. But I like that because it gets me up like, all right, you know what? I'm going to get up because I work at home. I work in my office. And so I'll use that cue to like, all right, I'm going to go get a thing of water or something. I'm going to go pick that up from the kitchen. And you know what? I'm going to take the dog and take her for a quick walk or something, either in the backyard or on the street, or I'm going to, it gives me a break, a mental break from what I'm doing, but it gets me up and moving as well. So I find that was always a good thing. It is a good thing for me. And it's a great thing for most people. You don't need a fitness tracker in order to do that, but it's a really helpful thing. And that's why one of the many reasons why I loved that video you made, because I thought it was so appropriate and really spoke to some good points, that we can expand on a little bit here.
I want to go ahead and segue into the next topic, which is kind of getting back to the list that I sent you before.
Well, you sent me like 10 minutes before this.
Yeah. So I don't remember which video it was, but somebody asked the question. It was a simple question. I think it was just like, I work full time. How do I get in my activity?
That question in the live chat of that video struck me as so important as well. And it was a really nice person who asked it. I hope they're watching this right now, because they look at how much they mattered to both of us, how much that question struck us both. Right. And so thank you, whoever it was, I forget now, but thank you for asking that question. But see, more reasons to show up for your premieres. Right. But I think, it's such an important topic to cover, because I can't tell you how many people I hear say that exact thing, that it's probably the most common question or issue that I hear people saying, that I'm so busy, I don't know how to, fit exercise or whatever into my daily life. And, it really is such an incredibly common issue. So what I typically will tell people is, look, you have to think about it in terms of priorities, right? And break it down. Now, it's not always so easy to break down. A lot of people don't realize, they're not always conscious of their priorities. So what I was thinking of in terms of advice I can give people to kind of break down their priorities is to not sit there and literally like think it out, because that doesn't always work for everyone, right? It's like this. I threw my mom under the bus in the last episode that we were talking like this, and she's like, "I love the whole thing, but except for the part where you totally beat me up about sitting on the couch of doom and like not exercising. Like, thanks a lot." I'm like, "Sorry, Mom, really apologize." But so I'm not going to do that again.
I love that you brought that story up, because I didn't want to share, because I'm like, man, I don't want to bring his mom up again. But that story, like, at least not in that way. That story really made me think about things and made me kind of there for a few days. I kind of like just sketched down what I was doing just to kind of look at, because I mean, with me fitting fitness in typically that's not something that I struggle to do necessarily, but I put other, like, there's always things that I get. It's always a trade. Like, what are you trading? And there's things that I will let slip. And sometimes that's not acceptable.
Well, so where I was going with that is exactly what you just said, which I'm glad you did say that, because I think the way to figure out what your priorities are is actually to sit there. So at the end of the day, people could do this throughout the course of the day, but maybe it's even better to do this as a new habit practice at the end of a day, and every day for a week. Write down, to the best of your recollection, what did you do that day? Okay. What did your whole day look like? And with approximate timeframes, right? It doesn't have to be like to the minute or whatever. It's not like an attorney recording what they did minute to minute, but a ballpark, right? Ate breakfast and then got ready from this time to that time, went to work, blah, 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 whatever. And then, was there physical activity, intentional physical activity in the middle of any part of the day, the work day, or not, and whatever. And then coming home. And then I think the morning and the evening and the middle of the day are the most important things, because when you're not working, right, when you're on your personal time, then how do you spend your time? What does that look like? Because those are more of the optional times during the day where you have the ability to elect what you do with your free time. And let's be honest, I work, my God, 12 to 15 hours a day. No one said this was easy, right? But you know what? I bake in that time into my day most days to get the exercise in, to go to the gym, whether it's in my home gym at home or down the road, the gym like that I love going to.
But a lot of people think that I don't do anything all day, when in actuality, I work about 60 to probably 70 hours a week.
I beat you. I'd probably do more than that. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I bet you do.
It's crazy hours.
Yeah. So, but
no one realizes how much work this is.
I love this other quote that I found. Where is it? The key is not to prioritize your schedule, but to schedule your priorities.
Yes. And it's a priority. So if that's not happening, look at the end of that day or at the end of the week, after you've done this for several days, at the end of every day, look at that calendar, that schedule that you've now made, itemizing how you spent the time. And I can almost guarantee that most people who don't have exercise built into their schedule, they're spending time sitting on I love it, the couch of doom, right? And they get stuck. It's like this evil thing that like sucks you in, and you can't, once you sit on that couch of doom, you are not leaving it. All right. It's really hard to get off of that thing. It just calls your name and it doesn't want to let you go. So how many hours are actually spent sitting and watching television? Maybe snacking while you're eating, or just sitting there and not doing something more constructive. Like, you can still watch TV, but you can do it on a treadmill. Maybe not everyone has a treadmill. Not everyone has a TV in front of a treadmill, so there's all different things, but like there's ways to get around it and to still accomplish the goal of doing something that you enjoy, while also figuring out how to then look at what you've done, how you spent your time, and seeing what your priorities have been to date and typically are, and figuring out, well, what can I move around in this schedule? What am I most comfortable removing, partly or entirely, that I don't need? Maybe an unhealthy habit or a less productive habit or something that's just time waster, and fill that with exercise of some sort, physical activity, going for a walk, whatever it is, and change the narrative, change the experience, and replace these things with healthier habits. That's how you start to identify what your priorities are and where you can kind of fit these new, better ones in. That's
so two things. One, I think with that, you have to look at your schedule and fit things that you want to fit into your schedule. So maybe that looks like 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there.
Absolutely.
Maybe that looks like you have 45 minutes for lunch, and you take 15 minutes and you walk up and down the stairs in the office. Like, it does not have to look like, some girl you watch on YouTube that is fortunate enough to have a home gym and spend time recording videos on her. Like, that's somebody with a lot of time and somebody with a different, like, it's different just different. Yeah. And like, yeah. So it doesn't, your fitness journey doesn't have to look like anyone else's as far as fitting it in. And two, it shouldn't. So like, if I were an RN, let's say, because I would like your insight on this specific scenario. So if you are an RN and you've spent the last year and a half emotionally and physically taxed, overworking, not exactly receiving extra pay or benefits, you're exhausted. Mm-hmm. So many nurses have gained so much weight over the last year. Maybe it doesn't start with a fitness journey as in working out. Maybe it looks like self-care and legs up the wall, like some gentle yoga, and starting to bring some calmness back to your body. But what advice do you have, Aaron, if it is somebody like that with a schedule that has just been over the past year and a half, medical professionals, not just nurses, but medical professionals in general, have just been completely taxed? And what would you say to somebody who works like 412s in a hospital every week, but they're gaining weight and they need to lose weight? Like, how would you help a client like that?
That's a really good question. There's again, no exact answer. However, because there's also many different examples within that example per se, right? But I like what you said about self-care. We all need downtime. We do. We all, I know this may sound like I'm counteracting what I said before, but I'm not actually. We all need time to do what helps us to kind of relax, kick our feet up at the end of the day, right? And that looks different for everybody, whatever our hobbies, our interests are. And I know what it is to be stressed and to really be very stressed out in a situation like that. Look, I think back to, I've been, I'm not a nurse. I was in a different profession for a period of a few years where, even though I was still technically in the fitness industry as well as like a bit of a side thing, my main career was, I was a commercial real estate broker for a few years in Manhattan. Let me tell you, that was a crazy stressful job, like really stressful job, and not easy at all. Okay. So probably one of the highest stress jobs. It almost gave me a heart issue actually. So, but with that said, I remember I had my second child if this goes back, he's just turned 7. So this was like 7 years ago, 6 to 7 years ago. And in that year, I probably had the most stressful year for business in my life. We had our second son, and everything, it was just, I was so busy with everything, so stressed out. And I remember like, the floor fell out from under me in some of the business stuff that year. So like my income went down significantly that year. So I remember it was hard for me to sometimes get to the gym, and I was so stressed out. And I put a lot of weight on for me. It was the only time in my life that ever happened. And it just happened so quick, it seemed like. So I had to figure out, oh my God, like I had this aha moment, like what happened? Where I'm going with this as it relates to them is that, I had to start to bake in time for me to not fall into the habits that were like stress eating had become a thing for me. So I had to figure out more positive ways to get rid of that stress, to deal with it mentally and even physically, like the act of eating. I was eating more junk food. It was almost like a comfort type thing to, relaxing. It was not a healthy outlet. So I really took a step back. I knew, like, I identified some things that I enjoy doing that would relax me, that would kind of recenter me and make me kind of, I would have to kind of get all that stuff out of my head temporarily. I would have to kind of reset myself. And then I was better able and better equipped to face what I was doing professionally, to be the best father and husband I could be, and to then also show up for myself. And by the way, exercise is another part of the answer, because we know about this, that, after you exercise, you get an endorphin high. You actually feel so much better. Like, I can't tell, I think I said this in the last conversation we had, that when I go to the gym, I could have the worst day. Stressed out, annoyed about whatever, I don't know, I'm like happy guy. It doesn't seem like it happens, but like, no, we all have bad days. But if I go exercise, I literally leave that workout feeling like a weight has been lifted off of me. Okay. And I feel so much better about everything. And I'm now better equipped to handle the stresses of that rest of that day or tomorrow much, much better. And that's like a cycle that you start to build. And if you continue along that, it becomes a new habit. It also starts that positive cycle of events, and it perpetuates and it improves over time. I know it's very hard for a lot of people to start doing that, like when they're in it. And that's where that whole stepping back, taking a deep breath, and just taking care of yourself at first is a very important first step, like what you said before. Doing what makes you happy and actually allows you to recenter and just feel a little more balanced and grounded. That's a great first step. And that could look different for everybody.
I love that. And going back to that quote. So the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. And before you can schedule your priorities, you really have to reflect and decide what your priorities are. So for everybody, that's going to look a little bit different. And speaking of that, I kind of want to touch on, this is another thing that was on the list. So as I share my journey on YouTube, I am often in a state of reflecting on what I've done, reflecting on the things that have gone well, the things that have gone not well, that I could have done better. In my mind, I don't make excuses because I don't have anything to excuse. I reflect on my process and make changes accordingly, and I move forward. What are your thoughts on excuses or reflections on setting boundaries and assessing your needs and kind of picking your priorities, finding your process for success?
Interesting. So, the excuse thing is interesting. I think about what some people who I know on YouTube say. There's a guy I know, I'm sure a lot of people on your channel know, Greg Doucette. He's like, there's no excuses. Like, just do it. Look, you know what? Everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different like purpose and reason and whatever. It's not just so easy. Like, he has another saying, just put the fork down. It's not that easy for everybody. Right. But the excuse part, there's always going to be a reason why there's always going to be a reason you can come up with as to why you shouldn't or can't do something, like that whole thing with my mom, right? There's always a reason why someone could say, I just don't have the time, or I can't do it today, or, I don't know. I don't feel confident enough to go to the gym, or I don't feel good about myself I just don't feel, I don't know what I'm doing. If I'm going to start working out, like where do I start? What do I do? And those things are used as excuses of why not to do it. And those excuses, look, end of the day, the excuses will always be there. There's always going to be a reason, another reason why you can't. But the important thing is to find reasons why you can and why you should. So, and that I think is really tied to the priorities and to think bigger picture. I know I said before, like, don't think long-term goals, but at the same time with this stuff, I think it does pay to think bigger picture. Long-term, where do you see yourself 10 years, 30 years, right? Where do you want to be 10, 30 years from now, whatever, 40 years from now? Where do you want to see your life? Because at the end of the day, like, we all have one body. We all have one life to live, unless someone who's listening believes in reincarnation, right? We only have one chance to do this. So we better do it well. We better do it the best way we can to live the best and most positive and healthy and happy life that we're able to. So don't, like, excuses are, they just hold us back. They're not serving anyone. They're serving our downside. Like, they're withholding us from our happiness. So it's important, I think, for all of us to identify if we are trapped in that kind of mindset of excuses, making excuses and reasons why we can't.
To me, an excuse is validating a desire that is not aligned with what maybe we should be doing, or we feel we should be doing, or maybe the list of priorities. So maybe I've made a list of priorities. I want to work out and I want to lose 10 pounds, but that's really not aligned with what I'm wanting. So then I make excuses like, oh, I didn't work out at all this month because I stumped my toe and it hurt really bad. And then my friend needed her car washed. And so I washed her car. And so I didn't do anything. Like, it's finding reasons to not be successful. I feel like that's what an excuse is.
Yeah.
What I do on YouTube and just that kind of, so you've got excuses on YouTube. I'm reflecting on what I've done so that I can improve upon it and move forward better. Not saying, and I do not feel like I have failed at what I'm trying to do ever. I feel like I have continuously moved forward better than I was before. Now, does that mean I've moved forward perfectly and I've never done anything wrong and I'm without fault? Of course not. Like, there are things that I've done wrong, but I'm also not going to excuse not being successful and quitting my journey because it's not perfect. So reflecting on the process, reflecting on what I could have done better, and then doing it better is different than making excuses.
Totally agree.
So looking at a spreadsheet of the steps I took in June and July, I'm like, in my mind, I did more than that. That doesn't take away from the fact that I still took a lot of steps. Comparatively speaking, it was progress. In June, I made progress even more than June in July, an increase of 30%. But I want more. And so I'm not making an excuse because I don't feel like an excuse is warranted. That is what I did. I am accountable to what I did or didn't do. And I'm setting more aggressive goals to get to further down my weight loss journey.
Yet still reasonable.
Still reasonable, yes. But going back to excuses or reflection, I think being able to identify, I think people are accused of making excuses a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not always excuses. So conversation to have with yourself.
Totally.
Like, okay, so I want to work out. And you have 10 excuses to not work out. And you don't work out. when you reflect on that, did you prioritize your excuses? Were they actually were they actually priorities, or did you just not want to work out and just not work out? Like, I feel like it's different. So like, I want to work out today and I'm driving home from work and I get rear-ended and I get whiplash and I don't work out. Well, that's an excuse for not working out, but it's pretty darn valid. So like reflecting on that decision-making process helps you grow.
I totally agree. I also think it's about, what you said before that too. I liken that to like, if you make a mistake, or if someone doesn't successfully, is not able to exercise in a given week where they plan to start, look, we're all human. We all make mistakes, but using that experience of making a mistake, or I don't know if I'd call that 100% mistake, but you failed to make good on what your intention was, right? You could think of mistake, whatever. Learning from that situation, reflecting on it, and investigating, well, why did it not work? What did not happen, or what did happen that caused me to somehow not fulfill my intention to work out or to do this? Or like, it's great. Like you can go and pack your gym bag, put it in your car. And let's say, I'm assuming someone's working out of the house right now. Okay. And you go to work, and then you have every intention of going straight to the gym on your way home, and you don't. And, so thinking about like, why did that not happen? Did you forget? Did you not schedule it? And you literally forgot you had your gym bag, it was in the back seat, like, or did something else happen and that was higher on your priority list that caused you to like put that on the back burner? Oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll leave the bag in the car, and then it just sat there for the rest of the week and you never ended up going. These are ways that we can learn from our excuses, as you put it, or mistakes, or failing to make good on our intent, and learn from it to improve, to learn how we can show up, how we can starting any journey like this is always the hardest part. By far is the hardest part. So, starting a fitness journey, starting a new job, starting anything, it's always a little scary at first because there's unknown, there's stuff like that. So that's a whole nother conversation.
And before we transition there to, because that's kind of the last topic I want to talk about, is that starting your journey and setting expectations.
Mm-hmm.
The second part of that, like reflection versus excuses. So the process for that, you also find and set boundaries for yourself and assess and like come to terms with your needs. Like, so as you're making your list of priorities and you're figuring out how you're going to achieve what you want to achieve, like there's some boundaries that you need to set with yourself. Like, these are acceptable reasons. Like if I'm an RN and I lose a patient, maybe I don't have to work out that day, or maybe I absolutely have to work out that day. Like that's something that you have to decide for yourself, and then you own your choices. I feel like I don't have to make excuses. Like what I share on YouTube specifically is that mistakes that I make or the path that I'm on, other people can see, and maybe it expedites their decision-making process. I don't owe anyone an excuse except for like, as far as like this process, I owe that process to myself. Like understanding.
You're accountable to yourself at the end of the day. No, exactly. You're not accountable to anyone else. You have to show up for yourself, and that's it at the end of the day.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And in the end, like it's at the end of the day, we have to live with ourselves, and things like eating healthy and learning, it's worth the investment of learning how to eat healthy. It's worth the investment of time to work out. Even if it's a process where you fell 10 times, if you are successful 12 times, you're ahead, you're winning, and you just need to keep powering through the mistakes and figuring out what you need to do in order to live your brightest, healthiest life.
Yeah.
And that should come regardless of your current size, regardless of anything in your life. Making healthy choices leads to happiness overall and better health in most cases.
April, I love that we can talk about these things here, because this is, I don't have on my own channel on YouTube, I don't talk so like freely. Like my videos are more planned and like very like cinematic, crazy things like movies. But this is, I love getting the chance to talk more like this as well, because look, what you were talking about just reminded me, brought to mind, like, for you, you're a friend, you're a good friend who I am invested in your success, and I care about your success as a friend, like a legit friend. And it drives me crazy sometimes when I do see people who will look at what you've done and will criticize and will throw their opinions and whatever on you. No names, we don't have to go there. But it makes me annoyed, because it's like, who are you to judge what someone else is doing? Who are you to shove your opinions down their throat and to arm other people against someone like you, per se? Right? It's so inappropriate, and it's not nice. It's unkind. It's inappropriate. And I hope they're watching this now, because yes, I'm talking about you. And if they're watching, they know it's them. So
they're not watching.
Yeah, they probably won't get this far because they're just trolls. But the point is that, everyone makes mistakes, and they are okay. It's a part of the journey. It's how we learn. It's how we become better than we were yesterday. If we didn't make mistakes, if we didn't stumble every so often, hit a hurdle, a roadblock, a speed bump, or whatever you want to call it, we would never learn how to be successful. Every CEO of every company, every successful person will always tell you, a big piece of why they're successful is they failed. And failure teaches you how to succeed. Okay. Failure is a part of exercise. If you don't go too close to failure or to failure with most of your exercises in any working set, you're not going to stimulate your muscles enough to get stronger, get bigger. Failure is a part of so many things in life that cause improvements. So for people to say that about you or anyone else who ever failed, and I'm not saying you failed, you didn't. And you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. If you had a stumbling block or something, that is inappropriate for them to say that.
For so many people, because it could look like
people fear it then.
You go to your family reunion and you decide you want a cookie and it fits within your goals, and you eat a cookie and you have somebody come up to you and be like,
you ate a cookie.
I thought you were on a diet. I guess that didn't work.
Yeah.
Right? Like it comes.
Who are you to judge my cookie eating? Come on. I'm not, I know. I know exactly what you're saying. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. So, and it's something that we all have to, you don't have to excuse that. If you are working on your weight loss, and regardless of that, you don't owe an explanation to other people. You may choose to give one, but that's different. And that's where good boundary setting for like other people comes in. Like boundaries are so important, but like if you have chosen to have a cookie, that does not mean that you are off track, off your diet, and you're about to ruin your life. Changing that narrative is so important. That toxic diet culture that says that you have to be so incredibly precise and perfect all of the time, or you're going to fail, is wrong. It's a lie. It's a lie. And it's the reason most people aren't successful. That toxic thinking is why most people aren't successful, because it is okay to not be perfect. It's progress, not perfection, to be super cliched. Daily progress over time, as you said perfectly earlier, compounds. Your good habits will compound and you will end up better overall.
Yeah, I look at progress over a period of time is actually the better way to also look at it. Like I tell people, for me, it's just a habit for me. Like I'll weigh myself every morning at the same time every day. That's just me. But for my clients, I typically don't always suggest that. I sometimes will say, if you're even going to hop on a scale once a week, right? No, it's different for everyone. It really depends on that person's mindset. But you're looking at the trend over time. You're looking at, and it's not just about the scale. It's about the trend of your ability of what you're doing, your actions, your habits, all these different things, and then how they impact your goals and your progress over time. It's a constant evaluative process and learning from whatever positives or negatives happen along the way. It's really what it comes down to. So I think that it really plays into what we were saying.
It's not always fun to start.
No.
Like
we don't think it is.
Yeah. Especially in the moment, like at 350 pounds, washing the dishes was hard for me to do standing without extreme lower back pain.
Yeah.
I can clean my entire house multiple times, walk the dogs, and I don't know, go work out and do whatever. I could do whatever I want. And I cannot get that same pain in my lower back at this point.
Oh, that's also a testament to how much stronger you got.
Yeah.
Through your whole process, which is great.
I mean,
but the impact that the weight loss had as well.
So all of that to say, kind of coming back to setting good expectations as you start a fitness journey or a weight loss journey. What are some good tips, tricks you have for people who are just starting their fitness journey or their weight loss journey or both?
Okay. The first thing, and I'm going to look at everyone in the eye here. There are no quick fix shortcuts. I will repeat, there are no shortcuts. Zero. None at all. Any shortcut that anyone advertises, run fast and far and do not buy into it. No apple cider vinegar.
I have to tell you something.
What?
Sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay.
So last week, but I said that and I referenced the ads that pop up on YouTube, and YouTube demonetized it.
Wait, what?
They demonetized the video. So the podcast segment that I posted last week, I didn't get a strike or anything. I didn't get in any trouble, but they said this video is not good for all advertisements. So it's going to not have ads on it.
You got to be joking.
Because I said, if somebody promises you, this is not going to go on YouTube. This will be on the podcast, but not on YouTube. I had a friend.
That's how ridiculous is that?
Listen to this though. I had a friend and she was watching some YouTube video on binge eating, and a binge eating ad came on, and the ad promised her a cure for her.
Oh God. What?
100% cure for her binge eating.
Oh, sure. So magic cure, a pill to take or something.
Called the number and the person who answered the phone was a super skilled salesperson, but didn't try to sell her anything at first. She kind of acted like a counselor. Like, tell me your story. Tell me your struggles.
Yeah.
I hear you. Like, so manipulative. She told her story, and then the woman used everything she said to try to force her to buy this several $1,000 cure for binge eating. Very aggressive.
I would love to hear what this cure is, because this mystical, magical thing. Like what? I would love. I'm just curious to hear what this total BS thing would be. Except just stealing someone's money, to be quite honest.
Because I can't remember the person's name, but it was just like a mastermind course, like the mastermind courses.
Yeah. Now, I know some mastermind courses are great, but there's others that are complete nonsense like that. But
it was like literally being sold as a mastermind course, like a binge eating mastermind course. Just complete. Yeah. So I looked this person up, not a trainer, not a nutritionist, not a medical professional, but she is anyway, this is something that was.
We call those people? Scam artists. That's what they are. Scam artists. So many beginners that fall into that trap. I hate
don't know what V-Thread or who V-Thread is.
You don't want. He's like a big YouTuber that has millions of subscribers, and he's probably the most commonly seen advertisement that you'll see on any channel, any fitness related channel, because he's like, do you want to eat salad for lunch, or do you want to eat a whole pie of pizza? Well, if you take my magic pill, this fat burner pill, and he goes into this whole diatribe about it. You can eat pizza every day for lunch and breakfast and dinner.
Fat burners are almost always a scam. So
yes, garbage.
Like the stuff that is sold is not for someone who has hundreds of pounds or 100 or 50 or 20 pounds to lose. It's not anyway.
Yeah. So there's many things. There's so many myths I could bust in this part of the conversation. Could remember
the person's name, but just know if you ever see an ad, and this goes to what you were saying, if you see an ad on anything promising you it will cure you, it's not going to. Don't do it.
Yep. Anything that promises fast results, fast results. That's a big buzzword to stay away from. Okay. Guaranteed results. Stay away from that. Promises. Stay away from that. Never, ever, ever. Okay. There are no promises. There are no guarantees in life except taxes and death. All right. Honest to God. Like that's it. Okay. There's no other guarantees of anything in life. Okay. And anyone that can get it says, I guarantee you're going to lose all the weight if you do this, or you take this fat burner pill, or if you do this program.
So weary of people who start collecting. When you call somebody and they want to act like they're your best friend or your counselor, and they start pulling information from you, be wary. Like, that's not okay. And to so anyway.
Yeah, I feel very strongly about all these things.
There's no cure for your fitness and your weight, like for your overall health, that doesn't include time and hard work.
Yep.
Hard work over time. And
by the way, with that said, that point alone can save people so much financial issue. And, it drives me crazy. I see people, I have clients that come to me who start working with me, and when in the whole process of onboarding them and, getting to really know them, like not just like a little bit, like I really get to know all my clients. I actually become friends with all my clients. It's always been that way, because I take the time and we really, you work closely with people and you get to know them, and it's important. But I hear these stories about how I've done this diet program, and then I did that one, and I hired these other guys or women or whatever who had these programs, and they seemed great, and I just wasn't successful. I couldn't do it, and all these things are just. And I start to add up the dollar signs in my mind. I'm like, oh my God, they spent like thousands of dollars on this absolute nonsense, when the answer costs nothing or very little. A few pieces of equipment or a gym membership, and maybe getting some guidance from a trainer in the beginning, or working with a dietitian for a short period of time, just being taught what to do by someone who actually is qualified, who actually knows what they're doing, and actually is invested in their success, instead of, apple cider vinegar drinks and juice cleanses that, what juice cleanses are going to do? I know I'm sorry if anyone listening is a fan of them. Juice cleanses are going to do one thing. They're going to make you a hurricane on the toilet bowl for about a week. All right. It's no fun. It's going to just literally destroy your intestinal tract.
I've been doing, not often, but I've been doing those little juice things. Immunity juice. I haven't done it.
That's a little different. Maybe. I don't know.
It's not really different.
Okay. All right. I take it back.
I feel like it works. I feel healthier.
I don't know about that.
I'm also saying, it's mostly turmeric. I feel like most of those shots, you feel something burn and you drink it because it's full of turmeric, and then you have an explosive time.
Yes, you do. It definitely happens. That's the thing. I stand by that statement. I know it sounds ridiculous. Hurricane in the toilet bowl. It's true. So, it's not going to end well, literally. But it's just about eating healthy and learning what the right thing to do is, and following that path. Once you have the knowledge, there's no gimmicks. There's no let me reset my body. No, there's no resetting of the body. It's just, let me just start doing things the right way. Whether it happens right away or whether you go through some steps to get there, that's all it has. That's all it is. But, I
think one of the best ways to cleanse your body, though, is drinking more water.
Oh, yeah.
Really, you're wanting to cleanse your body, drink more water.
Well, that was going to be one of the things I was going to say, actually, the drinking the water. when I personally got out of shape that time, like about 6 years ago, increasing dramatically my water intake, and there you go, drinking water. I took a few sips today myself on this talk, but it actually, we should all drink about a gallon a day. Okay, the average person, that's about the right amount, right? I've heard people say that's too much. No, it's not. That's about what you need in a day. And yeah, you might have to get up and go to the bathroom a few more times, but you know what? It's healthy.
And if you're really petite and that is too much, then don't drink that much. I think that's important too. Like, even if you go to a dietitian, you still have to sort of use like some reasoning. Like, we're still responsible for ourselves. If you go to a dietitian, because I've gone to a medical like center and was put on an 800 calorie protein sparing modified fast that was dietitian, like it was supervised by like medical professionals and dietitians. Like, that's not good. So like, you still have to make choices. So when you hear from your trainer, drink a gallon of water, and you know that you should not drink a gallon of water, not that you don't want to, not that you're making excuses, then you don't do it because you're still responsible for you. Other people are just trying to guide you. Like, they're trying to guide you and impart their knowledge on you. They don't have your answer. You have to work for your answer.
100%. I love that. It's so true. Yeah. And, that's why I always stress everyone's journey is different. Everyone's situation is different. That's why I try to avoid at all costs giving a blanket statement of do this and do that, and this will work for you. It really is so different for everyone. And, in my own videos, I say these things. Like, I remember my pull-up video that I made a couple videos back. Towards the end of the video, I even have a whole statement next to me. And I say, I'm not going to promise X results in this amount of time. I'm not even making any representations or promises, even if it means less clicks and views for me, because you know what? Everyone is different. And I cannot promise you anything because it's not the right thing to do. So yes, everyone has the responsibility to also do their research and do their homework to figure out, is this appropriate for me? Is this something that is reasonable and achievable for me to even do? But getting back to the water thing, one of the great reasons why water helps with weight loss, it also helps to give you that feeling of being full. So you're less likely to go and reach for something to snack on in between meals or overeat during a meal. It helps you to feel satiated. I'm not saying you should not eat enough food. That's not at all what I'm saying, but it helps as an aid to help you to eat a little bit less within the boundaries that you've set for yourself, within the range that you want to be in. It is just a helpful tool, but it's aside from being very healthy in general to help you filter out your body and kidneys and everything and flush your body out, right? And just be healthy overall. It is healthy to drink water. And to anyone who watched the recent video, I'm not going to name names. If you know what I mean, if you know what I'm talking about, soda, diet soda is not healthier than water. Fact. So there was a big video that was made on someone's channel, and it's someone who I actually like, and I know them, and I'm friendly with them, and I respect them for the most part, but they made that bold statement. I'm like, oh boy, I could say so much about that. And no, there's nothing healthier than water in terms of liquid that you drink. Just a fact. So
even I find, and this is just me, I mean, I don't think it's just me. I think it's probably a lot of people, but I'm speaking for myself. When I use like Mio stuff.
Oh yeah, I've used that before. It gives you that feeling like you're drinking something with a little flavor to it.
It does. But when I put that stuff in my water, it doesn't, it's not the same. It's not equal to me drinking water as far as like flushing. It doesn't feel for me.
Well, you get an aftertaste also.
It leaves an aftertaste. Sometimes it makes me feel like a little bloated. It's not like drinking plain water. Like, I think drinking regular water, maybe with some little lemon in it, be careful of your teeth, of course, but like plain water is the best, in my opinion.
I totally agree. Water is pure as long as you have healthy, clean water that you have access to. But yes, nothing's better than water because there's nothing in it. It's just water that your body needs and is made of. Once you start adding chemicals, I don't care what anyone else says, any additives and chemicals above whatever is in water, a chemical, it adds things, layers of other things that you don't need. And, if you think about it, at the end of the day, what's in a lot of sodas is really a waste product that your body gets rid of. So you're literally drinking a bit of like a waste product, if you want to think about it like that, right? It's not exactly 100% like true way of thinking of it, but it's like, I say that only because it is a little helpful to realize that it's stuff that your body doesn't need, right? You're just going to excrete it anyway, afterwards. So that's the best way I can kind of put it. And it's, whereas water, your body needs everything that's in water.
Yeah. So kind of going back to and kind of in closing, setting good expectations as you start through your fitness journey and your weight loss journey. We've kind of talked about this throughout, but start slow,
yes,
sustainable, simple, like keep it simple, and give yourself grace when you set goals. Like if you set 5 goals and you feel they're attainable and you go after them and you come up short, evaluate why, and then adjust and continue forward. There is no catastrophic like thing that you can choose to do that will excuse throwing away all the progress that you've made because you had a cookie, for instance, or if you miss one workout and that leads to 2 weeks of not working out, that's not good. But the solution to that is to start working out again. Yep. So like a lot of times we catastrophize the decisions or our shortcomings and then use that as an excuse in some regards, like, oh, I'm a failure. I'm not going to get it. Like I can't eat healthy. I can't work out. And then we halt our own progress, like continuing forward and letting what we can do, our good habits snowball is so important.
Well, the mental part of it is the biggest struggle for most people. It really is.
Yeah.
We tend to be, all of us tend to be our own worst critics. And we tend to be the hardest on ourselves when it comes to hitting a roadblock or a speed bump or whatever. And the important thing that I've found, and I tell everybody this, is you have to be able to forgive yourself if you stumble, if you hit a roadblock, if you have a hard time at any point during the journey. It's normal. It's normal to have to kind of hit and stumble and, hit a roadblock. It's normal. It's normal to fail. It's actually sometimes good to fail because it teaches you something. And the important thing is to forgive yourself and to be able to then move on and not beat yourself up that you didn't meet your goal. You even went backwards sometimes. Like, this happens. This is normal. And it's okay. Because if you're not able to forgive yourself, that's where things really can spiral out of control. And I really feel for people who do feel that way, because it doesn't have to be that way, and it shouldn't be that way. You should be allowed to not always succeed. Right. And anyone who makes you feel otherwise is just wrong. It's wrong. They're absolutely wrong. If someone makes you feel like you're less than because you didn't hit your goal or whatever, it's just not appropriate. Right. So we need to forgive, we need to move on and just keep focusing on the journey ahead and keep learning and adapting as we move forward. That's really what it comes down to.
I 100% agree. Just being kind, both to ourselves and the people around us.
Yep.
For the long ways. Sometimes it's hard to be kind to ourselves, but learning to do that is part of the process. Thank you, Aaron, for guest hosting with me today, having this lovely conversation that we've gone all over and taken probably 2 times as much. I set a goal for us for 1 hour. I'm pretty sure we're at least 2 hours in almost.
We're like, I think we at least hit an hour and a half, close to it. You know what?
I was like, I have a hard stop.
You know what though? I think we really
hard
did.
Stop didn't happen.
We touched on a lot of good stuff that was necessary and appropriate. And I think it built on what we talked about last time. And by the way, I'm looking at some of the notes, or things that you sent there. And even from what we were just discussing, there's so many different things that I still would love to talk more about, in a future episode. Like like, hey, what about someone who doesn't have a supportive spouse? Okay. Yeah. And they don't have that support at home, and or they get sabotaged by that or by their friends. Like, that's something that I think is super important to kind of talk about too, because I've seen that in so many ways play out with people, clients and friends and people who I know. And that's an important topic that isn't talked about enough.
Well, and I hope that people take away from this video a lot of great things for their own journeys. Something else I hope people take away is, if you leave comments and it's topics that we feel would benefit lots of people, like, we're going to come back to it, hopefully in a good way that will help lots of people.
No comment goes unnoticed.
Yeah. And Erin's always in the comment sections of my videos. Well, maybe not always, but most of the time. So, but you can also find him at his web on his YouTube channel, on his Instagram, on his website, which is FitLabb with 2 B's. And thanks so much for being here,
It's my pleasure. I'll always show up for you. You know that. And it's absolutely a pleasure to do this with you. I have fun every single time.
Me too. Wow. I'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks so much for watching with us, and for all of your love and support, encouragement. And I really hope that if you are starting a fitness journey, or if you're restarting or continuing, that you are kind and gentle and you take the time to explore what you need, and you treat yourself like you're someone to contend with, and you negotiate with yourself. You figure out a plan of action, and then you work with yourself to make sure you end up in a successful place. I am so grateful for you on this podcast, and I look forward to talking to you next week.